Hi, I'm Dr. Gwyn Erwin, and welcome back to my channel, Healing for Your Life. Today we're going to do something that is really delightful. This is going to be the first video in the playlist of Living Your Creative Life. As with all the other videos, they build on each other, and they also interrelate. So I'll be referring to certain things today, which will take you to another video in case you haven't seen that. You can go look at that and then come back to this one. And I'll point out when that is. What is the creative process, and who is considered creative? Is that just a gift from the gods? Is that something that just a very few select people have? Is a true artist rare? Or is creativity a process that can be accessed by anyone? And by saying that, I'm not trying to bring down creativity or artistry to the ordinary, because it is an ineffable experience, and it is an inspirational one, and sort of an enlightened one. It is its own special state. So if you haven't listened to the video on states under the developmental roadmap, this would be a time to do that, and then come back and finish listening to this video. So a creative state is a series of mini states and implicit memory with its procedural steps that forms a process of creativity. And anyone who engages in this process will find some source of creativity within them. They may not have a specific gift or a specific talent, but if they take an interest or they take a passion, they will be able to do something using this process that I'm going to talk about today. So there are as many definitions of creativity or artistry as there are probably people in the world. And there are many, many ways to look at creativity and many ways to try to access the creative energy within ourselves. This is one of my ways, but it's just one. It's the one we're going to focus on today. So I call these the zones of creativity. They each involve any number of state shifts, which is moving from one kind of state, like you're in when you do the laundry, or cook a dinner, or make love, or run with your child at the park, to a state that is very focused on bringing something into the world that did not exist just a little bit ago. That's at the heart of creativity. It's about manifesting ideas. So in zone 1, I call that your open zone. And you begin by purposefully knowing you want to be creative. And you create an environment that is conducive to being creative. So you have time for yourself. You have the time that is not going to be interrupted. You have time that is not going to quickly end. You've got some luxury in terms of time. And in the first element, you can use breathing, you can use focusing, you can use a photograph, you could use music, you could use candlelight, you could use sunlight. Any stimulus that is enhancing for you to purposely shift your state into being open, into a receptive place. What you're looking for in an organic way is a sense of, I just want to take in whatever is there for me to notice and be aware of. I call this an entrance state shift. Now, it could take you 10 to 20 minutes to get there. It may take you only moments. But you want to stay with what you're trying to do, because suddenly you may think, oh, I'm thirsty, I need a glass of water. Or, gee, there's a cupboard in the closet I really have meant to clean out. I think I should do that first. Then I'll come back and be creative. Try not to to give in to those siren voices, because they will lead you to crash against the rocks of non-creativity. So here you are in this open place, and there are 4 elements to an open zone. The first is what I call wafting. I don't know if you've ever seen a flower or a feather in a little petal or a feather or a little dandelion puff in the breeze, and it just sort of wafts around. The breeze just kind of takes it where it wants to go, sort of like at the beginning of a reverie. So you're just going to let yourself waft. You're going to let yourself wander. You're going to let yourself notice. You're going to let yourself be aware, purposefully aware and alive. You could go for a walk. You could look out your window. You could look in your creative space. You could work with a tool. You could just hold a pen or a pencil. You could feel the keys on your computer keyboard or a typewriter, if you still use a typewriter, because there are creatives who use them. They're very conducive. Any way at all that you can waft, you just let yourself waft. And as you do so, you'll come upon the second element of this open state, which is gathering. So imagine having a little mental basket of some kind, and as you waft and notice, you put things in your basket. You just gather them in there, or you catch them in a kind of metaphorical butterfly net. You're just going to gather them up and put them away for safekeeping. You might see the light fall on a patch of leaves, or the greenery of a particular bush, and suddenly you notice, oh my gosh, that looks so much like the woods where I grew up as a child and where I went for these wonderful walks with my grandmother. Walks with my grandmother. I'm going to put that in my basket for safekeeping. Once you've gathered quite a bit, you're going to mull. Now, you don't have to even stay in your creative space. You may, in fact, mull in the shower. You may mull while you're doing something a little more mindless, like folding laundry, but not if you have 4 kids tugging at you. So you want to keep a space that's conducive to just mulling. And what you're going to do is, in your mind, or with a piece of paper and a pen, or with your computer, or with a paintbrush, or with whatever creative tools you want to use, you're going to mull about the things that you have gathered and see where they take you. This is where you're sort of like a little rabbit, and you're going to follow the trail and see where it lands, where it takes you. And then you're going to move into a gestating state. Gestating is different than mulling, because now you're going to kind of plant some seeds. You're going to let some of your ideas take a form. There's nothing right here, and there's nothing wrong. You're just going to give yourself a chance to put your ideas into a beginning manifestation without judgment and without critique. Now here, you can decide whether you want to let your ideas still percolate, or if you want to try to move them along a little further in your own creative process. And then it might be time to take a break. So now you need an exit state shift, because I'm sure most of you who have done creative work are aware of a kind of sadness or longing or poignancy that takes over when you have finished a part of creative work. It's very hard to leave that state. It's like saying goodbye temporarily to something very precious, because it's hard work to get there in terms of the logistics of life. But now you want to take a little gestational break, knowing you're not going to cut off your awareness of all that you've wafted and noticed and gathered and mulled. You're still going to gestate it. It's still going to be alive inside of you, but you're not going to be working directly on it. The next time that you have the chance to go into a creative space, you're going to go into zone 2. Now you may go into zone 1 several times before you're ready to go into zone 2. Zone 2 is a state of using. Again, you want to use an active, purposeful state shift to get into your creative space, however you have set that up. The first thing you do, once you sort of feel like you're at least on the edge of that state, if not fully in it, is that you want to choose. Now, this is where you're going to exercise what we call propositional thinking. This is a capacity we have when we're born, but it needs to be nurtured. And it has a great deal to do with personal voice and authorship, but authoring your life. We're going to go into propositional thinking in other videos and more deeply, but for today, it's a capacity that we want to see maturing by the age of 3 in what we call authorial voice. This is a concept created by Denny Wolfe, and it simply means that the child can now begin to author their experience, their own agenda, their needs, and their wants. So you're going to exercise your propositional thinking or your authorial voice by saying, I propose. Well, what do I propose? I was working on this idea the other day, and I want to come back to that and see if I can't take that another level, take that a step further. So you're going to make some choices. Then once you've made a choice, gee, I'm going to work on this, you're going to go into a flow. Now, flow is a very nonlinear, dynamic process where you're basically taking dictation from your mind. You're not trying to decide what to think. You're not trying to decide what to do in any kind of concrete or rigid ways. You are going to flow with the thing you've chosen. You're going to put it out there, whether it's writing or planting or painting, and you're going to add an element and see where it takes you. And then you're going to follow that little rabbit trail. And every now and then you're going to get surprised and say, wow, how did that go there? I wasn't expecting that. Oh, follow that trail because there's gold there. So you're going to flow. One of the elements that I've created that help writers especially, or people who love to journal or self-explore with a flow writing process, is a deck of cards that are available for sale on my website. You can see more about them there. That really supports your own flow process, so I want to point you in that direction. So you're going to follow the flow of your mind. It's a very right hemisphere activity. And then in the next step, you're going to focus. Now here you're going to use more of your left hemisphere and your executive prefrontal cortex. You're going to make decisions. You're going to decide, do I like what I did? Yeah, I really like it. I want to see where else it's going to go. Well, I like this part of it, but maybe not that part of it. I think I'm going to alter it and take it in that direction, and then you're going to go back into a flow state. So in this using zone, there's a lot of back and forth between flow and focus, flow and focus. Again, when you're ready to leave for the day, you do an exit state shift, knowing where you've left off so you can come back to it when you're ready. The next opportunity, the third zone, is thinking. And thinking is not merely cognitive. Again, use an entrance state shift to get into that lovely creative space. This is a sphere that's kind of expanded flow and focus. Here you're going to bring, and I use the word very carefully, critical thinking. I do not mean critical in the sense of criticizing. I mean using your executive brain, your prefrontal cortex, to make decisions about different iterations of what you're creating. So there are going to be many attempts. I'm going to rewrite this section of this book. I'm going to dig up this plant and move it over there. I'm going to put just a light sketch on my canvas, or I might be starting to fill in some tones, Or if I've finished with tones, I'm going to be concentrating more on colors. I'm going to hear all of my ingredients, and now I'm going to start assembling them. Gee, I could make this meal out of these ingredients. I could make that meal out of these ingredients. All kinds of things. You're going to test out your iterations, and this is a very right and left hemisphere situation because you're going to go back and forth. So it's a little more specific flow and focus activity where you try an iteration, you see how you like it, you redo, you redraft, you repaint, you replant, you try a different recipe, and then you come back to a new iteration. Again, when you finish, you have an exit state shift. Our last zone is called close. And in this, we have really created something. And now we're ready to complete it. That's the first element of the close zone. We complete it. Then we polish it. And then, this will be another video, we launch it out into the world. That usually takes people's breath away. That's one of the hardest things to do with the creative process. So we're going to devote a whole video to that at least. And then last but not least, we're going to follow what we have launched. We're going to follow it with our presence, our awareness, our tracking. We're going to follow it with our gratitude and with genuine appreciation. So if it involves other people, a thank you note, a thank you gift, a thank you call is a very beautiful thing to do, to thank them for their involvement. And then you have to have a willingness to learn, which is you've given it a test run, certain things went well, others didn't, time to learn and begin again. This is one look at the creative process that I've designed. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you'll put it to use, and I'll look forward to seeing you on our next videos. Thank you so much. Bye.